Canon's free technical LUTs are fine, but I have a sneaking suspicion that there are better options out there. So this Black Friday, I'm spending some money. Let's start with the Canon Utility LUT. Now the main frustration people have with this LUT is the magenta tint. You can see here in the vector scope, my skin is just to the right towards magenta on the skin indicator line. Now I'm going to switch to the first LUT I purchased, Tyler Stallman's Clog2 Utility LUT. And what do you know? It nudges the skin right in place. I've been using this LUT for a ton of YouTube videos and client projects the past few months. It just looks like a more finished image with more contrast and saturation. I had fellow cinematographer Mark Gilday Jr. over to take a look at some of my purchases.
Your MacBook power cable is doing a big loop down there.
With him, I just called the LUTs number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. I did not disclose who made which LUT.
Yeah, 2 looks closer to ready to ship. Looks great. And I don't know if it's just the color of the guy's jacket and the color of those seats in the background, but it looks like too, it's not bringing the blue to a more, it's not bringing it in the direction of teal. It's bringing it in the direction of like royal blue or purple. And it's boosting that color.
And one thing I noticed after talking to Mark was that the black levels are also pretty different than Canon's. The blacks are black, they are 0 IRE, and with Stallman, they jump up. Going on up the adjustment layer list, we will go from Stallman to Leaming. Based off my understanding of the literature, Leaming LUTs are designed to be exposed to the right to, preserve shadow detail. I don't personally do that with the C70. I don't think you need to with this camera. And now I will move on to buttery compared to Canon. Right away, it's a lot flatter and less saturated. Buttery also brings the skin tones back onto that line. Similarly to Stallman's, but not nearly as saturated. The thing about butteries though is that I don't think it has nearly enough contrast. I think the buttery LUTs are designed to be more of a starting point with better, more Alexa-like colors that you will then grade on top of. You also get utility LUTs for -1 and -2 contrast and +1 and +2 contrast. +1 contrast looks better, +2 contrast, so let's go back to +1. I would still probably add some saturation to this. Now I'm really liking how this looks. Buttery +1 contrast and plus manual saturation. I really like butteries for this because you get all that highlight retention and every bit of detail in the fire isn't clipped. I also need to disclose that I got these buttery LUTs for free. I reached out to them and told them I was making a review video on various Clog2 LUTs, but no money changed hands. I just got the LUTs so that I could show them to all of you. Multiple people told me that they just use the built-in Alexa LUT inside of Premiere or Final Cut, usually the first option. Now when you add it, everything looks very desaturated and you have to bump that up to like 150-ish. I have it at 155 here, but now it looks great.
This is Canon right here.
Canon, this is Alexa.
See that, the Alexa looks great. What makes me think this looks nicer in this particular instance is that I can see the red more in the Canon with your face. It looks more like pale skin with like a little bit of redness going on. And then this makes you look healthier. Like it makes you look...
It's more flattering.
It's more flattering, yeah.
Next is Thomas. Compared to Canon, very flat, tons of shadow detail.
Veering like it's closer to like a log profile. The shadows are that bright.
So the whites don't get white, they actually go down to like 97 or so. But it does save the highlights in scenes like this soccer shot where the Canon LUT is kind of losing a bit of detail. Thomas's LUT really shows you all of the overcast sky. Next up is Tyler Edwards. Very contrasty. Canon's blacks go just down to 0 IRE, which something I do like about their LUTs is that I get a nice consistent black point. Tyler's LUT actually goes below 0 IRE. I don't really want to clip anything that's not supposed to be pure black, but his pack came with a number of LUTs, including one called Faithful, which I found to be my personal favorite of his. And Faithful is looking faithful, right on the line. However, it is very desaturated, just like a lot of these. I'm digging it. So when you want to see everything in your shadows and fix the skin tones, both Thomas's and Tyler's Faithful LUT seem to do almost the exact same thing. One important thing to keep in mind is that if you're working with good footage, almost any LUT is going to look good with it. If you're dealing with trash, Probably gonna always look like trash, no matter what LUT you put on it. Garbage in, garbage out. Lastly, Mark Bone. A quick skin tone test on the Mark Bone LUT. It's even more magenta than Canon, slightly. Super duper dark. But I don't think it's meant for boring YouTube talking heads. I think it's meant for dramatic documentaries like the amazing stuff that Mark Bone shoots. This is number 11 compared to Canon.
Oh yeah, it totally is better. It's a look. It has a moodier look to it.
So this is number 11, and this is Canon.
It's one of those things where it's like totally subjective, right? Like you could do the video all in this darker styled LUT and it would be sick. But if I'm just looking at two different stills, I'm like more gravitating towards the Canon because it's brighter. Yeah, that's the thing with music too. We're like comparing two mixes on songs, just whichever one is louder. 9 times out of 10 people are like, I like that one better.
We're recording, right? Yeah, we're recording, okay.
Today, actually, for the first time in years, I forgot to press record. And it was like not a big deal and I just had to repeat the question, but.
Did you own up to it or were you like, that was great, but could you phrase it this way?
I did that.
Now we're getting into an interesting category, which is hybrid of a utility transform LUT and a creative LUT at the same time. Let's cleanse our palette with a buttery +1 contrast. That seems to be a really good base. And now let's switch to Griffin Conway's Midnight LUT. Very much a look. It's cool looking, but the skin looks very washed out to me. People look kind of dead. Let's jack up the saturation globally to 150. Those wood tones in the instruments really pop now. My white shirt is pure white and my skin is vibrant. I was expecting this to have too much of a look to use for something like this, and arguably it does, but I'm kind of digging this right now. Now if we switch from Midnight to Iceland, really contrasty. So I would probably reserve Iceland for shots like this that are more stylized. There was a second half to this video about creative LUTs.
So I don't know what this would look like on like a talking head. Probably. Pretty bad. My guess is it's gonna be intense.
But technical LUT talk took up too much time, so I might make that its own video at some point. Let me know in the comments if that's something you'd watch. Personally, going forward, I will be using a lot of them, not just one. I cannot tell, based off this very limited time with these LUTs, which one I will use as my base going forward for YouTube, client work, probably different ones for different types of videos, and I'll feel out which ones work best with me as time goes on. Lastly, if you want to buy my LUTs, you can, I'm just kidding, I don't have any LUTs. But I am going to link every LUT that I talked about in the description, no affiliations to anyone. And if you like to shoot C-Log3 instead of C-Log2, or your camera only lets you shoot C-Log3, check out this video to see why I personally don't use LUTs on C-Log3 at all.